We're both excited to be here with you guys. Last year, Laurie illustrated The Teeny Tiny Woman for ustyme, which is a digital book publisher. They make children's books, strictly children's books for iPhones, mobile devices, iPads. And her book, and she's going to tell us all about it, was chosen for the Billion EBook Gift, sponsored by Reading is Fundamental. And 200 million copies are being donated to support literacy. And we've got a link up actually over on the Google Plus live event page. We'll tell you more about that in a minute. Laurie has also worked as a YA young adult editor for 8 years for 2 publishers before leaving to spend more time on her writing career. In addition to having more than 2,200 articles and 20 books in print and forthcoming, she also juggles freelance editing and illustration careers and writes under several pseudonyms. She has a master's from Vermont College and is completing an MFA in children's writing and illustrating at Hollins University. Her 2015 releases were her Cold Revenge, that's a fiction, YA fiction, and book 2 in the Wanted series, and her pseudonym for that series has been Erin Johnson. Imperial China, Ancient Egypt, West African Kingdoms for the publisher Cengage. A story in the anthology Love Profanity, that's a Capstone title, and then the illustrations for The Teeny Tiny Woman for ustyme. That's a lot of output in 2015, Laurie. Books coming out this year in 2016 include the first 2 books in the Amish series, Sisters and Friends, Charisma House, Change of Heart, and Buried Secrets. So they're in the Amish series, Sisters and Friends. 3rd book in the Wanted series, and illustrations for The Forget-Me-Not Keeper by Susanna Leonard Hill. She's going to tell us a little bit about all these titles tonight. And we have got all of the contact information for Laurie on the Google Plus live event page. And if you look over to the right of the video player on this page, you'll see the details box and all the links and all the titles and their order pages. The very first order link is for The Teeny Tiny Woman. Laurie, I want to know, before we get into your presentation, you prepared a lovely presentation for us, but I want to know about, as a way to introduce everything, adding this whole new feather in your cap of illustrating books, because you've been painting word pictures all these years instead.
Well, actually, I've always loved art, and if I had my way, I would have gone to art school, but my parents decided that I needed a more stable career, so I ended up there. I was going back to my first love. I went to Hollins University for their master's in illustration and writing, so that's kind of been my start to get back into the field. I got an MA at Vermont. It was actually in art education.
We're going to hit a lot of ground tonight in a lot of different areas because Laurie is a Renaissance woman, and she is a master of many disciplines, and she has a lot to share with us.
Okay, then we'll get started here. I was going to start with just a little brief bio. Mark kind of covered some of my bio, but I thought a lot of people might recognize me from my avatar on Facebook. This is what I use for that. And the reason I use it is because it shows my lifelong love of books. Here I was 10 months old and already loving books. And I've never lost that love for books, and everything that I've done since then has been connected with books in some way. So I started out as a teacher, a preschool teacher, and then became a children's librarian, and then moved into editing, and then became an author and illustrator. And again, all of the careers I felt helped me with where I am right now. I mean, I learned so much about books. I had the opportunity to present them to children. So I learned what kids like to read. As far as a librarian, I got to meet a lot of authors and illustrators. And then in the editing, I learned what it was like on the other side of the table. So I feel like I had a good background to come into it. 2 other places that particularly helped me when I was starting out, and I'm going to share these in case some people are just beginning on their writing journey. I know a lot of you are going to be illustrators, but some of you might be planning to be author illustrators. If you are, I found the Institute of Children's Literature is a wonderful place to learn how to actually write for publication. I really recommend their course. I took their beginner and their advanced course when I was first starting out. And you may wonder, a lot of people ask me how I got started in writing. So this is just an aside, but I had 5 kids in 8 years, and I needed something to keep my sanity. So I started writing. Yeah, some people, well, I mean, I did love books, but no, it was mainly to stay sane. But I started with the Institute of Children's Literature, and I was only partway through their beginning course, and one of the articles that I wrote for the course I sent to Highlights magazine, and it was accepted. Wow. And I thought, no, this is wonderful. This is so easy to do. All you have to do is write something and send it in, and next thing you know, you'll get a check in the mail. And for those of you who have done any submitting know that that was probably a fluke.
Or maybe not, maybe not.
It was good, but I certainly learned very quickly that there's a large share of rejection letters that come in too. So I had to go through that part, and I still do. I still get rejection letters no matter how many things you've published. I always love looking at Jane Yolen's Facebook page because she puts when she gets rejections, and I always feel, well, if Jane Yolen gets rejected, I don't feel so bad about getting rejections myself.
Ah, yes, I know. Those are fun posts to see when she does that.
And then the second organization that I found extremely helpful, and I still do, is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And if you're not a member, I suggest you run right out and join immediately. Actually, that was the way that I got my first writing training. I began by going to conferences and joining critique groups. And in my critique group, we had a writer who had quite a few book deadlines. And she was supposed to write a series of articles, and she didn't have time to do them. She asked if I wanted to write them, and of course I said I'd love to. So she worked with her editor, and they tried me out, and they liked what I did, so I kept writing for them. And actually, it was interesting because the editor that I had eventually moved up into a different job, and she gave me my first book contract. So never know, you always have to be real careful with your editors.
Be nice to them.
Because you never know where they're going to end up. So
yeah,
like, these two organizations were my biggest help along the way. And also I took a lot of online courses like Mark's that really helped me with my skills. And then I was already published, but I decided to go on to get an MA and then an MFA. I'm still at Hollins University. I've finished my coursework and I'm working on my thesis right now. These two colleges are wonderful because they have low residency programs. The Vermont College low residency, you go for 10 days a year, like in January and again in July. And then with Hollins, it's actually a 6-week summer program. And I initially started, they have a 2-summer picture book illustration certificate. And I initially went for that program. And then I loved it there so much that I ended up continuing on into the MFA program. And I think, I'm not positive, but I think they might be one of the only schools in the country that has an MFA in picture book writing and illustrating combined. The MFA is 4 summers and then a few classes online in between. So
4 summers, and then did I misunderstand? Did you mention a summer 6-week kind of an introductory program, and then you decide to go on to go through the MFA program?
Right. Yes. And
so they have a boot camp sort of affair, or a 6-week introductory. Is that like the first semester of a master's program for you to try it out, or?
The 2-summer program that I was in, it's called an illustration certificate program.
I think Vermont College has something like that too, don't they? Kind of a certificate program for.
I have a certificate program for picture books if you've graduated from their program. I think it's like a 1 semester.
I see.
My first book came out in 2009, and this was in 2009 and 2014, those 5 years.
Look at that pile of books. My gosh.
I was busy.
Oh, how many volumes of the Native American tribes?
It's 5. It was 5 volumes.
And you wrote them all?
Yep. Yeah.
Nonfiction and fiction. You're just not afraid of any genre.
I do. Yeah, I do everything from picture book to adult. So, and fiction and nonfiction. So I've done a lot of different things.
Wow.
And then this was the 2015 releases. The 6 books to the right came out in 2015, and then Change of Heart will be. I wrote it in 2015, but it's not coming out until 2016.
Okay.
It's just a quick. Well, it wasn't so quick bio. It took longer than what I thought, but on to the teeny tiny woman, which is why everybody's here, I think.
Well, I want to know a little bit more about the editor's work. You said it helped you enormously in kind of knowing the market, but that's fascinating to go from the editor's, all that wonderful editorial experience, and then go into writing.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things when I was saying how I did the articles, and then that editor gave me a book contract.
Yeah.
Well, she said to me that when my copy came in, it was always so clean, and they needed help with some editing. So she asked if I'd be willing to do some copy editing. So I started doing copy editing for them, and then I went and I got a graduate certificate in editing, and ended up getting a job with a small fiction publisher, and then moved up to young adult editor there, a senior editor there, and then moved into another publishing house and did editing for YA again. So
Did it make you have a real technical approach to your writing, or how has that influenced anything you sit down to write?
Well, one of the things that it taught me was to turn in really clean copy, because you know what it's like to clean up after copy out there. The other thing, I learned a lot about being on the opposite side of the desk, and I realized that editors want your book to be good as much as you want it to be good. You know, they're invested in it and they care about it. Sometimes it feels like when you're submitting things that editors are cold and cold-hearted, but that's really not the case. And a lot of times I saw too, I had to do a lot of rejections, and I saw, some things deserve to be rejected. I mean, I was a YA editor, and I had someone send me a book of poems for preschoolers. Now, simple look at what we did. There's no books for anything except YA, and yet that,
Yeah.
So I learned to be, careful about targeting my submissions.
Yeah.
Really sure that I'm going with the right person, the right house.
Okay.
I think too that I learned, like when you edit, you have to learn like big picture things as well as small little line editing. So I think it helped me a lot as a writer.
Yeah, because you have to think like the writer strategically about the whole of the book, don't you? And make sure the writer's staying on track to that vision, or it's almost like you're co-writing together. Is that? I mean, that's what I would think it would be like.
Like watch the story arc and
the story arc, the character changes. Yeah, fascinating.
The different pieces. So I feel like I learned a lot that helped me with my writing, and just the actual relations with authors, which I'm probably going to talk about a bit at the end. But I learned how to act with an editor or an art director, and what they like and what they expect. So that was very helpful.
Unfair advantage.
Yeah, it is in one way, because you do know what it's like on the other side. So, but it's very helpful too.
Thanks for filling us in a little bit about that. I'd wondered. So.
Okay, so shall we get started on Teeny Tiny Woman?
I think so. With a cover like that, you just want to open that book right up and go scare yourself.
This is a we'll talk about the scary part of it too. That's going to be part of this.
Okay.
So Mark asked me to talk about from the time that I first got my call, well, actually email, I guess, from Lisa at ustyme. And she told me that they liked my portfolio and they wanted me to illustrate a book. And of course, that's very thrilling. I mean, especially thrilling to me because this was my very first book contract.
Is this one? Did you see their call out on the Widgio group wall? Was this one of those?
Yeah, that was where I think that was where I did see it.
And so they were just starting up a couple of years ago.
Right.
And
this was their second call out.
Okay. Now I'm with you.
So they had said they had seen my portfolio and they liked my black and white pieces. And Nick, the art director there, particularly liked the one in the lower right. He said he really liked the line, pen and ink detail. So they thought they wanted to do something in black and white, which I love. So I was excited about that. And so we got started. But he did say something about he was thinking along the lines of silhouettes. Now, as you can see, my work wasn't really silhouette-ish.
I think that's the right adjective.
I made up that word. But I decided I was willing to try. So they sent me their Illustrator toolkit. And I know we have some other people in the group that have worked for ustyme.
Right.
And this was the first thing that I got, was a template. And as you can see, there's a little camera window there. And just to explain for the people that aren't familiar with ustyme, it was a company that was started by some grandparents who wanted to read to their grandchildren who lived far away. So what they did was they created an app, and the little camera window, the grandparent will see the grandchild, and the grandchild can see the grandparent, and they can read to each other. But when you're doing a layout, you have to remember that that camera window is there, and you can't put any elements in that area, which you'll see I made a mistake and forgot about that. So I'm going to show my mistakes as well as some of the triumphs along the way.
Oh, you're being so transparent with us. Thank you.
So my first instructions were to do a sample piece for the teeny tiny woman, and they wanted me to use a silhouette style. So this was what I sent in. And if you've seen the actual picture of the cover and maybe one of the interior illustrations, you'll see this is totally different than what we ended up with. So
it's still cute. Still really cute.
Well, I was picturing a teeny tiny woman, this sweet little old lady, as you can see. And I thought, she'd be smaller than, I wanted to do something that showed her size. Well, they liked the idea of showing her size. They thought using flowers and plants and things like that to show that she was small was good. But they wanted a more cartoony style. And that was a bit of a problem for me because, as you've seen my work already, I was only doing realistic things at the time. So what I did was I went online and I started making silhouettes of all the different cartoons that I saw, just to get an idea of like how the features were exaggerated and different body shapes and things like that. And as I was doing them, I started developing some of my own. I think you might recognize some of these shapes because some of these are actually taken from real cartoons.
Uh-huh.
But
all different kinds. All different kinds of characters, yeah.
All kinds, because it wasn't sure. And actually, I couldn't find my final sheet that I sent to Nick, but this is the page where we were getting the final stages. The top ones, they had said they were kind of going toward the shorter thing. They wanted her like a little bit, like maybe about two and a half heads tall.
Yeah.
And they decided they wanted big noses. So you can see on the top, we were experimenting with big noses. And then these bottom two were a little bit closer to what they decided they wanted. It kind of combined elements of the different ones up here. And the shortest one was the one we ended up going with.
She's so cute.
Yeah, and then we decided that maybe she didn't need such a big nose after all. So the second one was what we ended up with, which I think is a little cuter. I like the nose myself. So that was my character. Then the next step. Well, this was kind of going on simultaneously, actually. At the top, you can see I was drawing heads and body parts and whatever, so I could get to know the character. But we were also talking about, Nick said he didn't want a real flat silhouette. He wanted something with some depth to it. So I was trying to experiment with it. And he hadn't said particularly, he said he wanted a pop of color, but he didn't say what color. So I was looking at yellow, as you can see from the one up there on the top. Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking again about red. Those were my two thoughts. And I don't know if it's too small to see, but picture with the yellow on it.
Yeah.
Bottom right, there's a raven and there's a skeleton hand.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't sure what that was.
But yeah, it's probably hard to see. If it were larger, you could probably see it better. Well, I had kind of decided to do that for like a secondary story. It's going to have the raven and the hand in the story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind because we'll come back to that later. So after Nick saw these, he said I was thinking 3D, and he was thinking more 2D. So he sent me this picture, one at the top, and said, he was thinking more of that type of depth when he was talking depth. So as you can see, it's very flat, but it's just like paper layers one behind the other. Mm-hmm. So my first attempt was the one at the bottom here. And he liked it, and we talked about it. And one of the things he suggested was that maybe instead of staying all black, we could use shades of gray to give it more of a feeling of depth.
How are you achieving this image? What are you working in right now? When you for example, just the black one.
This is all done on computer.
What program are you using?
Photoshop.
Okay, so you're just drawing and painting in Photoshop.
Yep.
Okay.
And so here it is with the grays, and I thought that really worked very well.
It's stunning. Yeah.
Really happy with how that turned out. So I don't know. The screen looks a little off, but hopefully you can see where.
Yeah, there's more of the show. Oh, you got rid of that. Okay, yeah, we're seeing quite a bit of it.
Okay. Let me just. Oh, now it went real small. Okay, I'm trying to.
I like that. What do you guys think? Is that a good size?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
So what you can see is we kept the flower idea to show how small she was and how small the houses were. So then, next come the challenges. One of the biggest challenges for this book was the fact that there's only one character. Most books you have characters who interact, so you have a lot of different people and variety that you can have. And then, in addition, if you're familiar with the folktale, once she finds bone and comes home and puts it in the cupboard, it's very repetitious because it's just the cupboard saying, "Give me back my bone," and her hiding or being scared for 3 times in a row. Mm-hmm. And with silhouettes, you don't really have much of an opportunity to change your perspective. And I didn't really have any other characters, so to me it was a big challenge to try and figure out ways to make it remain interesting the whole way through. One of the things that I did was I tried to make the cupboard a character as much as I could, and you'll see in some of the pictures I tried to make it as if it were animated. But if you look at, oops, sorry, if you look at this, you can see, well, kind of like if you squint at it. I was thinking in terms of the top of it was the hair, and then the little covered, pulls, I guess you call them. The door pulls would be the
little handles.
Yeah, the little handles would be the eyes.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. Yeah.
Person's face, if you have a good imagination.
Oh yeah, no, we can see it. I think kids could see that right off the bat.
So that made for a secondary character for me.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Don't get a whole lot of facial expression or whatever, but I tried to give it some action throughout.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why this keeps jumping on me. I'm not sure.
It's jumping on its own.
Okay. So now on to some of the mistakes, and I'll show you one of the first ones. This was one of the ones that we tried when I was still thinking in terms of the 3D and some depth. And as you can see, I have the skeleton hand there in the window, on the windowsill, because I was trying to include it in the spreads, and they decided that that was too scary and too creepy for preschoolers.
The hand coming into the window like that?
Yeah. So they decided we were going to cut that out.
For those who aren't familiar with this story, it's like this nursery rhyme, but it's also kind of turns on its head. It's also like that monkey's paw ghost story, and it's just kind of a creepy, chilly, scary. It's like a sing-song, simple child's nursery rhyme, but it's a ghost story. And it's did you learn anything about the origins of this story when you were with them?
I didn't really look into it. I know it's an old, like folk tale kind of thing.
It just goes way back. Yeah, I guess it must. But it's odd to have a nursery rhyme that's as spooky as this. I mean, it evokes images like the hand coming through the window. I mean, it's hard to escape it. But okay, I just wondered if any of you have any more information about this old anonymous public domain story. Share it with us here. Let's knock it around a little bit, because it is interesting how these things and there is this sing song that Laurie refers to. It's kind of a sing-songy, repetitive telling of the story. I mean, it doesn't get much simpler in a storytelling format, but anyway, okay, I'm done.
That's all right.
Okay.
So I was trying to do things with the text to make it a little more interesting and whatever. But what I discovered is I forgot about the camera window. The text on the bed I was thinking was going to be above. Above the "Give me back my bone." If you look at it, the "Give me back my bone" is the last phrase on the page. But the way it worked out, it would have ended up backwards.
Okay.
This is why you don't turn off the camera window when you're designing, because you'll forget that.
You plan around the camera window. Yes. That's what you're saying, just like you would a text block. Okay.
It kept annoying me, so I turned it off, and then I forgot to turn it back on.
Okay.
So anyway, that's what can happen. So you end up with a story that's backwards here. So here are a few of the scenes that I used where it's the same thing over and over. The cupboard saying, "Give me back my bone."
Priscilla's asking, Laurie, did you design the text? It sounds like you did. You were deciding on text.
Yes, I had chosen that and made it. Yeah, I curved it and stuff.
Okay.
And then this was the next one. I tried to do it a little closer in and make the cupboard a little bit more menacing. And try to give her a different expression. The other thing with silhouettes, it's really hard to do much with expression, so it's pretty much eyes and mouth is about all that you really have.
Looks like you can still work a gesture in there, though, which says a lot. Yeah.
So, and then this one, and then we had the text, much bigger, and the cupboard like right over with her. And Nick came up with the idea of putting the bones for the exclamation points. I thought that was kind of cute.
That's what designers are for,
So here are some other ways designers are good. I'm just going to show a couple scenes that I started with, and then things that Nick suggested to improve them. So this was one we started with when she put the bone in the cupboard, and he said he thought it would be nice to have a little bit more in the background behind her. So this is what it ended up looking like when it was done, and I thought it was a lot more effective. Just it wasn't that much, but it made a big difference.
Where's the camera window going to go?
He said as long as it could go over top of
it
some
could
of the
cut
elements.
right in. Yeah.
But yes, once again was forgotten. Next time, I'll try to keep that camera on there all the time. And here was the final scene. This was the climax, where she finally gets up her nerve and she yells at the cupboard, "Take it." And so I had her in bed here. And one of the things with ustyme, Nick is the art director, but they also have a committee that meets and discusses the different stages of the art. I can't remember whether it was Nick or the committee that said they wanted the teeny tiny woman to be more forceful. So we tried that. And here she's being more forceful. We got her up. And then I was looking at her and I was thinking, actually, I could do something more with her hair to make her look a little more forceful. So I tried that. It was more effective. And then I don't have another picture of it, but for my final try, I decided to move. You see all the bonnet and the pillow and the shoes are like laying in a little line at the bottom of the bed. I had them coming, like the bonnet flying off her head and the pillow falling off the bed and the shoes flipping through the air for the last time. So each time we did it, I felt like it got a little bit more forceful and scarier and strong, and she got stronger.
The moon coming through the window there is just such a strong element, and I think it really influences the emotion in this scene. It rationalizes the little white outline in her hair too. It's like it's the moon, sort of kissing the back of her silhouette.
Yeah, I was trying to get that effect and also to distinguish her a little bit from the background.
It really works to do that. That's such a clever move. Yeah, against all that gray.
When you look at the one where her hair isn't, it's really hard to see her.
It is. That kind of touches the difference between really making it sparkle and not. You just took it one extra step. And it also echoes the little white highlights, that little white outline echoes. It just makes the piece that much more animated somehow.
Once we were done the interior, then it was time to do the cover. And for ustyme, they use two covers. They have a portrait and they have a landscape. The landscape goes with the book, but the portrait is used in stores like the app, it's sold in the Applestore and places like that. Is the cover that appears there. For the thumbnail on the order page in the apps. Right.
Got it.
So we started, Nick said he'd like something with a, oh, there it is.
There it is.
He'd like something with like a circle or an oval. So I started with these two, and neither of them really were appealing. So we decided to go with some elements from the interior. The one with the candle was a start, but Nick suggested using more elements and maybe one of the scarier pictures. So we ended up with this one from the graveyard. And then we kind of used those elements. Why this keeps jumping out at me. We use those same elements and the oval idea for the landscape cover. So this was what we were working with, and it just looked really plain and boring. And then Nick suggested, we had used the tree on the other one, so he suggested doing matching trees on each side, which we did. And then the border went around it, and I think that made it stand out a lot more. So.
What is it, now that we're all looking at it, that makes this cover work so well? If you were to break it apart for us, analyze it.
I just feel like the use of space works really well, and I like the depth that they, that's created with his idea of using the grays.
The several grays.
I think it kind of pulls it from the silhouette.
What is it? It's like a white, a black, and I'm counting 3 shades of gray in there. 3, or maybe, yeah, 3 tones.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be more, huh? And he's graded the white in the oval along the edges, so it gives a roundness, a depth to the white oval shape as well. So that's a really effective use of value structure.
Yeah, I really like how that turned out. The only thing I wasn't real sure about the text, but then I'm not I don't have a lot of skill in typography at this point.
He's got a shadow in there in the text. That helps pop it out.
Right. I thought the text could be a little scarier.
Well, it's pretty scary. I mean, it's for little kids.
Yeah, I think that's what they're thinking. That because it's for the picture book crowd, they didn't want to make it too scary.
Yeah, but it is kind of scary.
It has nice sharp points and things on it.
Sharp points. Right.
And it has sort of a tree look too, so I think
Molly Bang would have approved it in the angular, scary shapes. Well, and then the contrast is I think something that makes this so strong. I mean, you pushed the contrast. You went from black all the way to white. It also evokes, because it's a silhouette, which was such a popular illustration style at the turn of the century. It gives this story kind of a gravitas. It feels like maybe this is an old story we're looking at, and it is.
Mm-hmm. It's a very old folktale. So I think the suggestion to go with the silhouette was probably a really great idea.
A great idea, yeah. And yet you took it to another direction and made it kind of a fun, accessible cartoon. So you sort of did a mashup of the old and the new. There's a quality of this that reminds me of my wife and I were seeing the Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol on YouTube. We were getting nostalgic for childhood during the Christmas season, and I don't know if how many of you have seen that, or if you've seen it, Laurie, but it has the scary graveyard scene, this Christmas Carol, Dickens' Christmas Carol story in the graveyard, and this evokes some of that. Those were simple cartoon images too, but they were so beautifully designed as this is, and it really conveyed the emotion, for simple cartoon. Now there is a good question afloat here on the comments page, Laurie, and they're asking, well, why did you opt for Photoshop over maybe Illustrator, when Illustrator is known for doing this sort of cutout? It's made for this dropping in and painting with shapes, and whereas Photoshop, you have much more latitude.
Mm-hmm.
So they were wondering about that.
It would probably be better vector. But do you want the honest truth? I really am not very good in Illustrator.
Well, yeah, probably years of practice.
But I don't know Illustrator, and that's something I do. I want to work on more. I know you had some classes there with learning Illustrator, which were
Wendy Martin's course, yeah. But you did such a good job here of coming up with simple shapes. It would have worked well in Illustrator. You were thinking like somebody who works in Illustrator, the way you were cutting out these simple shapes of color.
Right. If I did it again, I'd probably try to learn Illustrator and work with it more, because I think it would be better, because a lot of times when I was resizing things or whatever. The book came out in March, and in December it was chosen for the 50 ebook giveaway. I think it's called, sorry,
That sounds right.
It's the 50 ebooks here on Riff. That's the website, but the actual project is called the Billion EBook Gift, and it's sponsored by Reading is Fundamental. and they're giving away 1 billion ebooks in sets of 50. And if you use that address right there, that RIF address, and I think Mark also put
the details box is to the right of the player, and then if you go down, it's the second link. You might have to click the See More button to open up that text block, but it's there. Thanks to Laurie hunting down the exact link for us. And you know, for those of you who aren't familiar with Reading is Fundamental, they're a wonderful thing for authors, because if you, even in the local areas, if they find out you're an author with a book, they will, and they get you into the program somehow. You might have to get yourself in the program by contacting them, but they will buy authors' books. And so when the author makes a presentation at the school, the box of books that from the publisher will be there, already purchased, and those books are given away to the children that you present to. And so this is a version of that writ large, with them giving away 100 million copies. How did they pick you, Laurie? What did
I don't know. ustyme and RIF partnered, and Nick said that he picked my book because it was unusual. Mm-hmm. Just that the illustration style was different, I guess. One of the reasons why they chose it. But what the books are going out in packs of 50. I don't know if you call it packs with ebooks. I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but they're going out in groups of 50. So if I did my math right, that means 200 million copies of the Teeny Tiny Woman will be given away
to the schools through RIF, or how is this going to work?
These are actually being given away, 1 billion books.
So what do we do with this link for this ustyme, this RIF link? How can we use it?
You can go there and get those books. You will probably need to get the ustyme app to use them, but I believe at least it was. At one time, the app was free. So
yeah, no, it's still free. It's still free, and so you can also, if you go to the ustyme page, the website, it has several different ways of getting the app and downloading it. They make it available through Google Play and iTunes Store, the App Store, and there's one other Android version, but the app is for mobile devices, digital touch screen devices. And so what you're saying, Laurie, if I'm understanding you right, is you can order the book. I mean, well, first you have to go to the ustyme website or those other app download sites and download the free ustyme app, and then right there on the app you can purchase the book. Or if you use this RIF link, you can get the book for free and download it to your app. Is that right? Or can you share it with a classroom?
Yeah, I believe that's how it works. So yeah, for classrooms.
Okay, so if you're part of a reading group or a library show and tell, and you can.
I mean, they were also thinking of it for families, so that kids.
Okay.
And, especially for families that can't afford to buy books. Because, that's one of the main missions for families. That, I mean, I can't even comprehend 1 billion. So.
Well, I don't think any author can comprehend 1 billion ebooks in sets of 50. That is now. What do you want to guess? What do you want to bet that it was your strong design with all that contrast and plus the spooky story that helped seal the deal and made your book selected? It's the power of a cover. Yeah,
I think covers make, they really do. They make a big difference.
They make the difference. And you had the luxury this time of doing your cover last, after you'd already illustrated the inside of the book. And so that's nice. Sometimes, so often the author has to do the cover first without having had, 6 months to get into the book and the characters. But anyway, it worked out. It worked out well for this title.
And you can see it up there on the little advertisement. That made me happy, because out of the 50 books, it was one of the ones they picked to show too.
Sure they would, yeah. It pops right out in that lineup. And those are some cute books. If you haven't gone to ustyme's website yet, do yourself a favor and go to that website and look how beautifully they're marketing with their videos and their covers. How beautifully they're marketing these these digital books. They're not interactive books per se, except for the camera window feature. Is that right, Laurie?
Yeah, that's all that they have at the
So
moment.
it's just about seeing a loved one long distance participating together or engaged in the story together, and then just looking at these really fun pictures on a device. And ustyme does it about as well as anybody I can think of out there. It's a really neat website with really great videos, sales videos for their product, and they're taking these public domain stories and just repurposing them. I notice sometimes Lisa Katz will rewrite and she'll give herself a byline. But in your case, it was just they didn't even attribute an author per se. They just have you on the cover as the illustrator of the book.
Right, yeah. I did do the text a little bit, but I mean, they gave me the text.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I changed it a bit, but I don't know.
Did they give you the page breaks and everything? Or did you kind of decide that?
I think I decided the page breaks, although there wasn't a whole lot of choice with that one, because to make the page turn, it kind of fell into a certain rhythm.
You've got the book out. It's got this wonderful recognition from Reading is Fundamental. What do you have more plans for the book, or is ustyme talking to you about next stages? Or
we have talked about doing another book. I'm pretty busy at the moment, deadlines.
Yeah.
If you come through with them, then yeah, I'd like to do another book. I think that would be fun.
So it was so illustrating the book was a fun experience for you and didn't
Yes.
disrupt your life too terribly.
Well, I was under a lot of deadline pressure there too, but for other books at the same time.
At the same time, you were working out of both hemispheres of your brain those months. How long did you have to complete the illustrations for the book?
I think about 3 months. It wasn't very long, really.
Did they give you as much as 2 months?
I think it was 3 months altogether because it fell over the holidays.
Okay.
So I think I got it like in November, and they wanted it to come out in March, so it had to be in by the beginning of February.
Okay. Okay. Well, you know, you're as a writer and an editor, you're used to working with let's say much more sophisticated material, and so now suddenly you're presented with what is really kind of just a simplistic, almost a nursery rhyme, simple text. Did that, and you're supposed to figure out the pacing and how to lay it out and keep the reader's interest and turning pages, digital pages. How was that tough, or was it refreshing to work with such a simple text and format?
I find picture books are probably one of the hardest to work with, just because the text is so short. And I know from my background as a teacher and a children's librarian that keeping kids' attention is so important when you're reading to them. So, I mean, I feel like I have some idea of what kids will think as they're going through the book, and what would have made a good page turn for me as a librarian, you know, because I'd love to, you know, get them all excited before I turn the page. I try to think of that when I'm doing the picture book, as, you know, what would make them want to turn the page to see what comes next.
So you knew what all the challenges, I mean, you had a very good understanding of what was being required of you to illustrate and basically design this story.
Right. I think that was a big help. And it's still a challenge, but at least I had some idea of what I would do if I were reading the book aloud, which helped me break it down and helped me think about what would interest a child enough to see the page.
Have you had an opportunity to read this title to groups of kids? Have you been doing some school visits with it, or have you been too busy on writing deadlines?
I've been too busy right now, but once spring comes, I'm going to be doing a lot of visits and conferences and things. So yeah, I'll get a chance to try it out, see how it works. So you had also asked what I was working on next, if I'd show a little bit of that. This is a book that I've written, and I'm trying to illustrate it, and I sort of went with what I learned from doing the Teeny Tiny Woman, and I think I'm going to try to work with a lot of blacks and grays, and maybe just a small, like, bit of pops of color. So I have the storyboard template here. I just wanted to point out, mine is from Elizabeth DeLumba. That's www.delumba.com if you want a storyboard. And I know Mark gives storyboards to his students, so if anybody needs storyboards, there's 2 ways to get them.
Yeah, and DeLumba is an illustrator, author illustrator with a wonderful resource website and blog, and she provides coloring pages and little helps for authors like these. And so you can you need to get familiar with her site and visit it often. She's just a wonderful resource.
She is one of the professors in the Hollins program.
In the Hollins program, right? And she's in Scotland now, or is she?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lucky her. So you can see I have notes to myself of things I need to change and what's not working. Usually that whole paper is filled up with notes by the time I'm done.
What an attractive looking thumbnail storyboard. It's already working because of your value structures in the spreads. Look at that.
That's what I was trying to work on and try to get that same feel of the teeny tiny woman, because I just really felt the
power of it.
I felt it was very powerful, just having the blacks and grays.
This thumbnail storyboard has such a feeling of movement and page turn about it.
I'm trying to work with shadow. So these are two of the illustrations from it that I think I'm going to try to work into finished illustrations. I was trying sort of a combination of collage and Photoshop, so we'll see how it works. It's my experiment.
You're talking about real collage photographed, or creating collage-like shapes, patterns?
I don't know if you can see on the bottom one there. The wallpaper is actually, I made the wallpaper.
Okay, and dropped them in. Okay.
Right. And then the baseboard is actually a photo of my baseboard. I don't know if I was going to do that with the toys here or what I was going to do. So right now it's just an experimental stage. I'm actually trying different things on each. So that's my picture book experiment for right now. And I have a couple others that I'm working on. And like I said, I'm working on one for Susanna Leonard Hill, but it's not in the stage where I can put it up here.
Great.
So my other project at the moment is my Amish series. And I have a February 1st deadline for my second one. So I'm writing furiously to get that done.
Now, did you initiate this series with? Is this part of a proposal of yours that has turned into a series? It's fantastic.
Right. I got an agent for the Amish series, an adult inspirational book, in January of 2015, with the first book, This Creative Heart, and then she sold it to a publisher in a 3-book deal. So I had to come up with 2 more books, and now I have to write the 2 more books. It's based in the Lancaster County area, which I used to live in Pennsylvania, near there. So I do have that advantage, and I also actually have a beta reader who's an ex-Amish woman who left the Amish recently, and she's from Lancaster, and she still visits family. So she reads my books for me and tells me if I get anything wrong.
Is this Amish society in historically, or is it in a contemporary?
It's a contemporary.
Okay.
And I'm writing that as Rachel Good. So interested in Amish books. This one is actually out for pre-order already. So.
Oh, I bet this is going to do very well.
Supposedly, yeah. I have Facebook page as Rachel J. Good, and I have a lot of people who are friending me. So I hope that means Amish.
Well, do you think you're going to suggest doing little chapter head vignette style illustrations for any of your future YA westerns or historical, in keeping with that earlier publishing tradition?
Actually, if you look at the covers, I don't have covers right here, but of my the YA westerns, they kind of did them in sort of a silhouette style.
Those have some good covers.
Yeah, the designer, and I thought they did an excellent job on the interior too. I was really, really pleased with that. So I hope they keep the same designer for the next ones. There's 2 more in that series that'll be coming out.
Fantastic. Some questions have been tumbling in about Photoshop and Illustrator. So I'm going to try to. Okay, Tina is asking, Laurie, what kind of illustration are they teaching in Children's Book Illustration College? So I guess she's referring to as far as your experience with the 2 programs, Vermont and Hollins. How did they approach teaching children's illustration?
One of the things I love about Hollins is it's a chance to experiment with a lot of different styles. And I actually went in with my realistic style, and I've had a chance to work with all kinds of people. We have like Ashley Wolf, for example.
Yeah.
Who did printmaking, and with Sanderson, who's big with oils. Lauren Mills is one of the professors. Beautiful, beautiful drawings and watercolors. And then we have guest visiting illustrators who come in and teach us. We had Eric Rahman come 2 summers in a row. Charles, Chris Sonpete. There's always, you can look on their website. I have a slide, one of the slides had it on, but it's a lot of fun because you do many different. Dennis Nolan was another one. He comes every summer.
You referenced some of this in your blog post too, haven't you?
Yeah,
they can go to your blog and just sort of read back about your experiences, and we've listed your blog spot URL again in the details box, and I'll send it up in a follow-up email because you've been keeping a very active blog.
Yeah, I try to keep up on the blog. You can find information about different things there, but you can also go to the website for their children's writing.
Hollins, yeah, and they're active on Facebook. If you get in their Facebook feed, you can get lots of fun updates from them. Victoria was asking, Laurie, did you create the shapes in your illustrations for Teeny Tiny Woman with the pen tool?
I mainly use the brush. I find the pen a little hard to use, and I think that's why I don't like Illustrator, because I don't seem to quite get that.
Would you say that again? I couldn't hear.
I said I like the pen tool. To me, that's a little softer. And one of the things, see, I don't have like a Cintiq or anything, so I just have a tablet, and I just use that. So drawing right on it.
And you said you meant brush tool, right? You prefer the brush tool.
I prefer the brush tool. Yeah, I said I have trouble with the pen tool. That's why I struggle with Illustrator too, because I end up with lines where I don't want them and things. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I need to learn how to do it right.
Victoria says you can create vector shapes in Photoshop.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And
check into that. Thank you.
Let's see. I'm trying to scroll up on my laptop with a pad instead of a mouse, and so it makes it very clumsy. But Victoria asked, with the brush, how did you make such crisp edges then?
It wasn't easy.
She likes how you hit it. It wasn't easy. Okay, that's comforting for them. I'm sure.
I had to keep it. Like I kept enlarging it so I could,
keep a crisp edge. That must have been a lot of work.
Make sure they were fairly crisp. So, yeah.
They're asking about references to the Wigio group, because I think I mentioned it at some point, and the Wigio group is in the Make Your Marks and Splashes online course that I teach, and that Laurie has been a part of, and Virginia, and many of you guys on tonight. That's the Wigio group is for that student community, and we just post things, and people share work, and it's just the active. It's kind of like our Facebook page, but it's much more private and secret, and it's for students of that community. Wigio is a free public platform that you can use for groups, and it's like Facebook. It started on college campuses, and then it's still used in a lot of educational settings, and some companies use it too for groups, and we just use it for our the executive director of the Writers League of Texas turned me on to Widgio as a vehicle for the Make Your Marks and Splashes course, and we've been using it since then. And we have, in that group, we have a sort of a warehousing service where illustrators, where authors who are trying to self-publish and are needing illustrators and don't even know how to start the conversation with an illustrator, they can type their requests for proposals or requests for bids into a form, and we take that information and feed it straight into our Widgio group, our student community, and students respond and sometimes get good jobs. And that's how ustyme found us, actually. And it's a big mystery to a lot of small would-be publishers out there, how to get in touch with an illustrator and how to price things and how to just handle that whole component that's so important. You know, they know it's how important it is for a book's success. Yeah, Victoria, that's correct. It's you can just look up widgio.com and learn about Widgio. And Gina's saying you can also change raster shapes into vector lines in Photoshop. Okay, and you know, we actually have a presentation that Steve Connor made, a art teacher, abstract painter, friend of mine here in Austin. He actually did a little presentation for us on how to use Photoshop as vector, and I will dig that link up and I'll put it out in the follow-up email on this. And those of you who are interested can check out his little presentation. It was about an hour long, and it was really interesting. I'm scrolling down for more questions. This is a really good time to ask, since we've got her here, Laurie, about the whole gamut of editing, YA writing, and picture books. And I think after you're going to be getting a lot of illustration assignments.
It would be nice.
After people start seeing the teeny tiny woman. I mean, does it encourage you to start casting about for old folk tales and fables in addition to your own stories, and just sort of putting dummies together and shopping? I mean, when you get time and your
right, yeah, when I have a little more time.
Incredible professional schedule. I mean, does it feel doable to you though?
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun to do.
Does ustyme take submissions from unagented illustrators? And I'll speak for them. I'm just pulling it out of the air, and Laurie will speak. We'll try to get Laurie in on this too. But yeah, they'd be happy to receive your art piece. You're talking about illustration submissions and samples, right? I don't know if they're particularly interested in paying writers for stories because they're using all this public domain material. But I don't know. What do you have any insight, Laurie?
I had to talk to them about the stories, and they said they were willing to have my help with the writing, but they wouldn't pay anything for it. So.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing the same thing Walt Disney did, right, with his animated cartoons. He just went to the public domain Grimm's fairy tales. It was a whole lot cheaper going that route than paying for screenplays.
Exactly.
He had his own people turn them into screenplays, and
they put their money into the illustrations.
Yeah. But it's neat that Laurie has such a background as a wordsmith and writer. So, and I bet you improved on the original text they gave you considerably, Laurie.
I didn't do a whole lot with it because I wasn't sure how much they wanted, you know.
Oh yeah.
But I did a little bit, so you know, especially considering where it was going to fit and things like that too.
Was that your last slide? Can we put you back up on the camera to field some of these questions? Oh, so I'll also take your gnome diplômes, and we'll post those links for the Amish books and the YA Westerns in the details box as well. Really fascinating. And there you go. There you are. Good. Great. That was a wonderful slide presentation. Thank you so much for that. Let's okay, Virginia's asking, how did you send in art with a book proposal? Did you do a layout in InDesign and then make a PDF and send it off? She must be Virginia. You must be referring to the cat story. Anyway.
Yeah, mostly for the teeny tiny woman. I just sent the individual illustrations in Dropbox to me.
Just as Photoshop files?
Right, and then they put them together.
Okay. Let's see. Good question from Psycho Toast.
Dummy, I'm not sure if that's what she's asking. When I do my dummy, I will use InDesign. I'll pull that's what the cat story that I was doing. I'll pull that into InDesign to make a PDF then.
Did you learn InDesign as in your years as an editor, or?
Yeah, I used InDesign I did layout for a while too. So.
Okay. Where do you send out your portfolio for work? Is that a question for Laurie?
I haven't really started looking at this point, but I guess I would probably use some of the same resources, the SCBW iBook and places like that.
Yeah, and for conferences, you can get a portfolio at an art supply store, on the ground portfolio review. Just get, just have a night. There's a million blog posts about portfolios. Editors at the trade houses and stuff, they're just looking at your stuff online that you post. So if you've got a website or a portfolio site, you just put your stuff on a page.
I think that's what InDesign asked. They asked to see your website. So you should just, if you're interested in working for them, you might want to contact them and just send them a link to your website.
Yeah, and that's how they were looking at all of our illustrators, and that's how they found you, right, Laurie? Through they wanted to see your website and see what your online presence was. So it's real important to have some sort of online presence. Laurie's got both a author website, professional website, and then she's got a blog where she can write her day-to-day stuff, and so they both work so well together. You can turn your blog into a combo website and blog. Okay. Let's see. I want to make sure we're not missing questions. It's pretty late where Laurie is, and she's been a real good sport about staying up late with us. Okay, so Virginia's asking, when you put the layout of pictures in InDesign and make a smaller size PDF, does it come across as a picture vertically on top of each one instead of horizontally across, like for a double-page spread? Yeah, I know a lot of people have been having this trouble with PDFs.
You can set up InDesign to do a double-page spread. That's what I do. And there's a little box you can check that says to make facing pages. If you check that box, you can make it a full-page spread, and then it'll come when you do the PDF. The spreads will be beside each other.
And that would be a good way to turn in a dummy, you think?
It works so good. In fact, I did have a children's agent for a while. She ended up getting out of the business, but I did send her a dummy that I illustrated, and she thought that the InDesign PDF was really, she was really thrilled with it.
How about your illustrations for Teeny Tiny Woman? Has Nick said anything really, really, really nice about them to you?
Yeah, he did say, I should have probably,
what did he?
One of their more interesting books that they had. So.
He was using restraint in his language, saying that's what was one of their more interesting books. Huh? Let's see. Gina had a recommendation for a portfolio. Let me pull that up again. Pina Zangaro portfolios are really pretty for a professional portfolio. Okay, neat. Thank you. And what advice, Laurie, would you give to someone who is starting out in illustration?
I would say join SCBWI and try to get an illustration critique group if you can, and go to the conferences. That's a great way to meet illustrators, get critiques at the conferences. That they can really help you. Take Mark's course, of course.
Oh.
and
I'm so glad you said that.
There are lots of other online courses too that can help you.
Yeah, you can learn a lot about illustration without having to necessarily pack off and go to art school for 4 years. It's
Always go to Hollins.
and there's always Hollins and Vermont College. Yeah, and your community college, or in Austin we've got the museum art school where I teach, and there's so many cool art classes going on there. All the time people are learning to paint. I don't know why I'm echoing so much. Maybe that's Google Hangouts telling us it's time to wrap up, Laurie. Let's see if there's Virginia says she learned a lot from community college. Tina's asking, Laurie, do you recommend for developing, maintaining your website? Tina's asking.
I don't have someone. I'm actually trying to develop my own website for my Rachel Good one.
Oh.
That's a challenge. So we'll see. And I bought my domain name. I have to hook it up. I haven't done that yet.
We're going to take one more question. We'll have time for one more, and then we're going to let Laurie get back to her writing desk. Oh, Tina's saying, I learned a lot from Denver Botanic Gardens Botanical Illustration Program. Yeah, that's an example of what we're talking about. People who earn BAs in fine art said their program, the Denver Botanic Gardens Botanical Illustration Program, was better than traditional college for art instruction. Okay, you're getting lots of thank yous, Laurie. So we'll let you get back to work. But that was a wonderful presentation, lots of fun, and with the recording, we'll process it. Will be up on this page for those of you who want to see the replay. And Laurie, thank you so much. It was a real treat for us.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Good night, everybody.